What are the reasons for this in very simplistic terms?
Well, so far we've seen the second warmest year ever since records began. And by the end of the year, it could very well be the warmest year ever. Let me try and explain what's going on this way. Every time you start an engine, for example, your car, your petrol car, every time the engine runs, you emit gases. Some that you can see, right, from your exhaust, and some that you can't see. In any case, these gases, they have to go somewhere. One of them, which is called CO2, basically doesn't miraculously disappear. It stays in the atmosphere and lifts up. Or it goes into the oceans and is released later. When it does that, that's what's called a global warming gas. And it's called a global warming gas because it stops the natural cooling cycle of Earth from working, if you know what I mean. When you stop the natural cooling cycle from working, what you're doing is you're basically playing with the climate. And as a result of that, what we've seen is that 6 of the hottest years ever were in this decade, and 9 were in this century. So I'm talking on a global basis, as opposed to, for example, just in the Mediterranean. And the driver is the coal and oil and gas that you burn to start any engine, really, or to produce most of what we produce today, from steel to cement to petrochemicals. I hope that was a clear enough answer.
Very, very well put. Thank you very much. I'm sure everyone understands it. Climate change is affecting our health and putting at risk the elderly. What are your recommendations to reduce the risks to the vulnerable?
Look, it's even worse than that. There's been 3 scientific studies released in the last few months, which show that the coronavirus is actually worse the more your air pollution is bad. And so the drivers of air pollution, of fresh air becoming not so fresh, and of climate change are in fact the same. It's that car engine and the motorcycle engine and the diesel bus. It's anything that's burning oil, gas, and coal. So if you look at it from the perspective of public health is incredibly well served if we switched our car fleets to electric fleets, if we switched our buses, especially school buses, transit buses, to electric ones, if we switched our scooters to electric ones. And all of these options are available and price competitive now, and they become incredibly cheap the minute you price the benefit to public health in them, which we don't usually do. So an electric car today is almost competitive with a petrol car without pricing the negative public health impact of a petrol car in the equation.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much for that. There's been some efforts over the last few weeks from a number of countries to reduce fossil fuels and ban petrol cars. Can you give us an update on where we are with these countries? I believe Norway has a deadline of 2025 to eliminate all these fossil fuels.
Look, the petrol car is basically finished. it's no longer rational today in 2020 to actually buy a petrol or diesel car or scooter or bus. The reason is that countries in the last year have moved very powerfully to stop their manufacture and make them very uncompetitive. So yesterday, Japan, for example, announced that it's going to ban the sale of new petrol and diesel cars from 2035, which is only 14 years from now. But if you work backwards, a car lasts 10 to 15 years. So you're basically stopping people buying cars, petrol cars or diesel cars this year or next year or the following year at the outset. And the second-hand value of your car is also going to go down. But Japan was only the second G7 country to ban petrol cars in the last 3 weeks, because the UK also said no more petrol cars or diesel cars from 2030, which is a mere 9 years from now. And so clearly in the UK, it's completely irrational now to buy any new petrol SUV or car at all. But they're not alone. California, which is the 5th or 6th largest economy in the world, California, also banned petrol cars from 2035. France from 2040. Ireland from 2030. Even India indicated it might ban them from 2030. So you can see there's a global move. It's huge. The car manufacturers are listening, and whether it's Volkswagen or the big French car manufacturers or even Fiat, all of them are now following Tesla's lead and investing literally hundreds of billions of dollars in changing their car stock, because they know this is coming and they know it's going to stop. The petrol car is basically finished.
What are your views on plastic and disposable masks that are universally worn since the outbreak of the coronavirus? What's the solution, in your opinion? How can we resolve all these masks and plastic products?
Well, remember at the beginning of the program, we said that the problem today with your fresh air and climate change is the burning oil, gas, and coal. Well, plastic really is oil. It's 99% oil. It's the same thing. Actually, the word plastic is a branding achievement, because it makes you feel like it's okay when in fact it's oil. So we need to stop using all types of single-use plastic. And what happened with masks in the coronavirus pandemic is completely scandalous, because in effect the plastic industry came in and flooded us with cheap masks, single-use masks for the most part, which are all turning into pollution. And as a result of the plastic pandemic which we're in, we today breathe and eat microplastics because it's in our food chain and it's in our air. And so what we basically need to do is pretty simple. We need to stop using all sorts of single-use plastic. And by the way, they are being banned or taxed now in approximately 40 countries around the world. And that will drive down our use of oil, gas, and coal, because every plastic product almost has a substitute. The only place where you really need them is high-tech medical equipment. We don't really have a substitute there. But that's like 1 or 2% of global plastic. So we can get rid of plastic globally, and it's going to take a lot of effort to get there, but we're hopefully on our way.
Sure, thank you. Thank you very much for that. I'd like to refer to the new presidency in the USA and Joe Biden's renewable energy deadline to eliminate carbon from the electricity sector in the next 15 years. What are your comments about that?
Well, the United States is a little late because, of course, we've seen net zero carbon announcements from China, Japan, South Korea, from all the European Union as well. So it's excellent news that the Americans are getting on that bandwagon. And of course, given how powerful they are, this should give additional impetus in the critical period between now and 2030 to fight back against climate change, because we can do so much better.
What sustainable initiatives would you like to see in the future by governments all around the world?
There's not too many secrets to what we need to do. We need to eventually get rid of using oil, gas, and coal, and we need to reforest and stop deforestation. So if you want to get rid of oil, gas, and coal, you have to switch to electrifying everything, starting with cars and motorcycles and buses and trains and what have you. And you have to use 100% renewable energy behind that. All of these are actually in the gift of government to a certain extent, but today the market is actually running ahead of government because renewable energy became cheaper than fossil fuels, and therefore it's taking over. Similarly with plastic, I'd like to see bans on single-use plastics worldwide. So if it's a plastic product that you can only use once, it's banned.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Assaad. It's been a pleasure as always. I wish you
My
a good
pleasure.
evening. Thank you. Thank you.
My pleasure. Bye-bye.
That was Dr. Assaad Razzouk, Chairman and CEO of Syndicate.